20 meters away from me at the most, probably less, probably 10, a young bull elephant in full charge mode erupted out of the bush. Now, his ears were flapping and he was bellowing, charging at me. I thought I was going to die. So I basically turned my bike around and started cycling. And he was so close that I could feel the vibration in my bike, in my body, of his feet, because he was charging, full charge from an elephant. And I was like, this is going to be a really stupid way to die. And then I was thinking, I wonder if he'll stab me with his tusks or if he'll just trample me. Will it hurt? How long will it take? I really did think in those moments that I was going to die.
Today, I'm joined by a woman who lives a life without borders, often called the Indiana Jones for girls. Alice Morrison is an author, adventurer, and world record-setting explorer whose life has taken her from the boardroom and newsroom into some of the most remote places on Earth. Before her adventures, Alice built an impressive corporate and media career. She worked as a journalist and a producer for the BBC, and later moved into the corporate world where she eventually became a CEO, the last position she held before pursuing adventures full-time. She was born in Scotland and raised in Africa. She is fluent in both Arabic and Turkish. In 2025, she became the first person to walk the length of Saudi Arabia, north to south, 112 days, over 1,300 miles. She cycled the length of Africa from Cairo to Cape Town, about 8,000 miles, facing everything from extreme terrain to charging elephants. She retraced ancient trade routes across the Sahara in her BBC series From Morocco to Timbuktu, traveling over 2,000 miles. And she completed Marathon des Sables, known as the toughest foot race on Earth, 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara in extreme heat. Now based in Morocco, her curiosity and resilience continue to inspire people around the world. Alice, thank you for being with me today.
Well, thank you for that very nice introduction. My head has swollen to enormous size.
You deserve it completely. What you've done is incredible. And I want to relay that to our audience because I wanted to people to understand the gravity of what you've done. And you've done a lot more than what I've listed. So my first question I wanted to talk to you about was, you had a corporate career. You worked at the BBC. In your late 40s, you are the CEO of a company, and that ended. That job ended. And then you decided to bike from Cairo to Cape Town. Why did you decide to do that adventure, and why didn't you just decide to get another corporate job?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm a very reactive person. And the way the way I had to end my job was that I was partially funded by the government and partially funded by private money. And when when our conservative right-wing government came into power, they decided to abolish the funding that was keeping us going. And we'd been very, very successful. We'd created so many jobs. We'd given so many opportunities. We'd had films at Cannes. We'd been nominated for BAFTAs. So we'd been very successful. And I just felt it was I felt it was economically very short-sighted and completely motivated for political reasons and for kind of like really non-solid reasons, and that it would actually cost the taxpayer more because they'd need to then set up new organizations to do what we did, which is what happened. And I was angry, bluntly. In fact, I was absolutely furious because, I'd spent 9 years of my life building this up and doing exactly what had been asked for me and exceeding that and achieving everything. And then to be told just because we've changed parties, gone from Labour to Tory, we're going to change this. It was absolutely enraging. So I was like, right. I won't even say the words that were going through my mind, but I'm sure you can imagine what they were. They start with F, a lot of them.
Yes.
And Years before, a friend of mine had said, Alice, you ought to do this one day. And it was a race from Cairo to Cape Town, a bicycle race. And it just stuck in my mind. And then I thought, you know what? What a great way to see Africa, get back to my roots. Once I think many people, many non Africans who live in Africa cannot shake the attachment, and I certainly can't. And so I signed up. I signed up in November, and in January, I was on a bike.
And you just went, you didn't train for it that much, is what I understand, right? You decide to do this, you say, I'm at a major life change and let me just do it. And you just went and did it.
Exactly right. I was in good shape at that time. I was like a good low weight, and I exercised very regularly at the time. But no, I didn't train at all. I basically, it was winter, so you couldn't get a biking anyway. It was snowing and icy, and my training consisted of me sitting on a turbo bike in my front room with a bar of chocolate as my as my snack, watching Strictly Come Dancing, which is what our equivalent of Dancing with the Stars. And that was my training. And oh my gosh, I suffered so badly when I started the race.
Tell me tell me what the race was like. I mean, this was over several months, wasn't it, to complete it? Tell me what your experience was like doing it.
But it was one of those experiences that I think very few people get to do, and it's unbelievable. You know, you cross the whole continent on a bicycle. You're racing, so you're racing a stage every day. Um, we averaged 134 kilometers a day, so about 80 miles a day, which is a lot. Up mountains, across deserts. We hit the rainy season in Tanzania. We hit 50-degree centigrade heat in the Sudan. And then by the time we got to South Africa, we were scraping the ice off our tents. So it was a huge exposure to the natural world, to a whole continent of people, 10 different countries, all the languages in those countries. You had to have a really good, strong physical core. And I don't mean necessarily athletic or sporty or anything like that. You just had to be able to get up every day and do it. Stomach problems were rife. We had typhoid in the camp. We had malaria in the camp. I got charged by an elephant. People got held up by armed gangsters and beaten. We cycled past, you know, giraffes running in the wild. It it was quite extraordinary when I think back. But of course, when you're doing it, you're just really very focused on doing every day and managing to complete it. You know, just trying to keep yourself in order so that you could do it. Because the whole thing is about these very long expeditions. You know, last man standing. That's it. Just keep going. Mm.
You know, I hadn't really thought about, you just think when you hear someone's going to do it, it's all about endurance. You don't think of all the intricacies of, yeah, typhoid in the camp, the weather changes, getting charged by an elephant. These are, I guess part of the challenge, huh?
They are. And I mean, I was really pleased with it because my first book came out of it, which I called Dodging Elephants, because spoiler alert, I'm still alive. But you know, these experiences, and also there were 63 of us who did the whole thing. And in fact, I was just talking to one of my friends that I met on the trip, Ruth, today, and we're going to go walking in England in June, doing an adventure together just with our tents. And it's that whole kind of being with like-minded people from all over the world, seeing a big chunk of the world. And for me, there was a very strong emotive connection with the physical land I was crossing. All my childhood memories, my earliest memories are of, you know, the red earth of Africa and the green of Africa and the mountains of Africa and the smell of Africa and the faces of Africa and the languages of Africa. Those are my formative memories. So for me, when I left and had to then go back to Scotland, it was a very brutal, I didn't know it at the time, but it was a brutal rupture. And so there's quite a lot of healing in going back. And none of it is conscious. None of this is at the conscious level. It's all subconscious. But, you know, give me a bit of red earth and a bit of African smell and a tent, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I believe, you were raised in Africa, born in Scotland, raised in Africa. You were in Uganda, and then you were in Ghana. I think you were, like, first 8 years or more of your life, and then you went to college back in Scotland. For our audience, of that entire trip, is there one story you remember sticks with you, something that you have fond memories of, or was it the charging elephants that's most memorable for you? Or there's something else?
There's so many stories, but I think if we talk about the elephants, so I was brought up in Africa, as you say. So we were always taught to be frightened of elephants because they killed people every year. You know, they trampled them. Um, and so I knew that elephants were dangerous. Unlike some of the people I was with, didn't know that. We heard that there were elephants ahead. We're cycling in a kind of a long, straggly line. So I thought, right, the bush, we call it the bush, like foresty scrub. So thorn trees, basically, and other forest on either side. I thought, right, I'll just wait here until the elephants have crossed the road, basically. I'm in no hurry. So I was standing, putting my suntan cream on. And then 20 meters away from me at the most, probably less, probably 10, a young bull elephant in full charge mode erupted out of the bush. Now his ears were flapping and he was bellowing, you know, and charging at me. Um, and I thought I was going to die. So I basically turned my bike round. I was facing the wrong way and started cycling. And he was so close that I could feel the vibration in my bike, in my body of his feet, because he was charging full charge from an elephant. Now, an elephant can go at 50 kilometers an hour. And I was cycling the fastest I probably ever cycled, but I wasn't going at 50k an hour. And it was very strange because it only lasted in the end probably a few seconds or 15, 20, 30 seconds, but your mind is working. So physically, I was cycling as hard as I could, but my mind was thinking, should I get off and try and climb a tree? You know, abandon the bike. And then I was like, don't be silly. They're thorn trees. You know, the thorns are the size of large needles. You wouldn't be able to. And I was like, this is going to be a really stupid way to die. My poor parents, my brother, you know, on a cycling tour. How ridiculous. Um, and then I was thinking, I wonder if he'll stab me with his tusks or if he'll just trample me. Will it hurt? How long will it take? And you're thinking this as your body is just, you know, absolutely to the max. And I really did think in those moments that I was going to die. I didn't die, as you can see. And what happened was once he'd thrown me out of his territory, the elephant just stopped. So it wasn't that I outran him. He was getting closer and closer and closer and closer, but he just stopped. And that was it. And then I kept cycling. Of course, he stopped. I kept going and then waited for quite some time until he and his family had crossed the road and got on their way. But it was definitely an experience because in that moment, I feared for the end of my life.
Has that been one of the most dangerous, scary type of moments you've had on your adventures?
Well, I was in a major earthquake which killed 3,000 people 2 years ago. That was unfortunate where I live, so in the Atlas Mountains, and that was also very, very terrifying. Um, but I try not to dwell on these moments because you know they're not the worst didn't happen, and therefore it's like right, okay, well that's it. Now it's a story. You know that elephant charge at the time, I thought I was going to die. I don't know if you've ever thought you were going to die, but I thought I was going to die. I didn't die, and now it's an anecdote and the title of my book. So it's weird the way the world, you know, carries on and keeps going. And now I have that experience as well under my belt. So I think you just progress, don't you?
Did it change you at all? Do you think it changed you?
I think I think every experience, I do think everything changes us a little. I don't think I didn't have a like a Hail Mary moment during that charge, but what I think is part of that whole journey certainly changed me because it kind of you know, my mum was before I left was very worried. She's a bit like you were saying earlier. She was like, Alice, you're never going to get another job. You know, you're 47, 48. you need to focus. If you go on this trip, you're never going to get another job. And actually, she was right in a way, because I never did get another big job. But the reason was not the reason that she thought. It was because by doing this very intense, amazing journey where I was, flung into so many experiences and where I was outdoors for 4 months, I didn't want another job. I didn't want to go back to the rat race. I had left the rat race for a bike race, and I was quite happy with that.
I wanna ask you, when you went to college, right?
Yeah.
You were deciding on what you were gonna study, and you studied, um, Arabic, right? And Turkish. I think you live in Morocco now. Why did you decide to learn Arabic of all languages?
Well, reading of the advice of my parents. So in Scotland, you can go to university at 17, which means you can leave school at 17 and go to university, which means you're choosing your subjects at the age of 16, which is incredibly young. I mean, I don't know what you knew at the age of 16, but I mean, of course, I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know anything. And I was wise enough to listen to my parents because I wanted to study English, which I was good at. And I've ended up writing and I love writing. But my parents were like, no, you can read books and you can write in your own time, do something useful. So I said, what about French or German? I'm good at languages. I love languages. They were like, no, everybody knows French and German. Do something different. And we were living in Dubai at the time. And my parents were there. They were both, my mom was teaching, my dad was head of the British Council there. And so I said, oh, what about Arabic? And they both nodded and were like, very good idea. So they very much steered me towards that. And it's been the best decision of my life.
Why do you say that?
Because it's led me to a huge richness. It opened my eyes to a completely different culture, to a different religion, to a different language, to a different script, but to a set of people who obviously we're all humans, we all have so much in common, but whose whole structure operated in a very different way from mine. And I think having that exposure early on would just, you can't help but be open minded. And that's just a massive, massive gift. Having an open mind is like the biggest gift you can possibly have. And I love the culture that I've come to understand. I've learned so much about it. I find so much beauty in it, so much beauty in the people, so much beauty in the place I live now. And when I speak Arabic as a quite a Scottish looking woman, it's not like people are very surprised, which is embarrassing in a way because so many Arabic people speak English fluently, but they're not only surprised, they're absolutely delighted. And so I've been met with so much warmth and acceptance and interest. And when people see that I'm genuinely interested in their culture and where they live, then they tell you all sorts of things and they allow you to experience all sorts of things. And as I say, if you have an open mind and that's what you love, then you're set for life. So I've been learning all my life and I continue to do so.
Can you give me some examples of, there's a lot of people that have never been to the Middle East or an Arabic speaking country. They don't know the differences. I've never been myself. They don't know the differences with Western culture. What have you learned in speaking the language and living in these countries?
Oh gosh, well, first of all, we're all the same. That's what I've learned. We're all the same. But there are some really very significant differences. I would say, I mean, again, I'm generalizing for the sake of answering your questions. So forgive me, this is a much more nuanced discussion. But for example, where I live now, let's take religion. Religion is very much, it's not a part of life, it is life. So, people pray 5 times a day, they fast in Ramadan, they read the Quran, they read the sayings of the Prophet, they talk about it. It's absolutely in every fiber of what they do. Um, and then it spills through into things. For example, in education, until relatively recently, learning things by heart, by rote, was much more valued than independent thinking because here everything's communal. And I think the biggest difference is that in the countries that I've experienced, the the society is more important than the individual. So the good of the society as a whole is more important than the good of one person. And that really does change the way people act. and the way they behave, because they behave from a perspective where what they do must be good for their group, for their community, rather than just for themselves. And that's a very, 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 very central belief and tenet in Islam. It's called ummah, the community. And it, I've seen it so much in everyday life. And I think, it's taught me a lot. It's taught me to be less selfish, bluntly. I still have work to do.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're living there in Morocco right now, right? You live with there's like a group of families and you live amongst them. So yeah,
That's
you're
right.
fully
Yeah.
ingrained.
I
Hmm.
am. I mean, yeah, there are four families just who live behind me here, and I look out onto the mountains, which are very misty at the moment. So I'm lucky enough. Today I went for a hike just to get some exercise in. I was invited, and here the language is the first language is actually not Arabic, it's Tashlahit, which is a Amazigh or a Berber language. And I met a lady in the past. She's like, "Oh, come for tea. You speak Amazigh. Come for tea. Come for tea. You must come for tea." And I said, "I can't today." She was like, "That's my house. You must come next time." And then I kept walking. And as I was coming back through the village, I went through the mountains a bit, through the forest. All our walnut trees are in bloom. It's beautiful, and came out into the village, and running up the road are three of the children from where I live. They were like, "Alice, Alice, Alice." And I get all these little tots grabbing me around the knees and giving me a big kiss as they go up to school, because school's in two parts here. There's a morning school and then a second shift, an afternoon school. So I think for me, the benefits of living with the people that I'm interested in and being accepted by them and loved by them and loving them very much back, it is heartwarming. Makes my life good.
Yeah, you seem very happy there. When
I
I've heard
am.
you,
I'm snuggled in.
it seems that Africa for you has a pull, right? I mean, you have family in Scotland, in Europe. You grew up in Uganda, Ghana. You're in Morocco now. It seems like you keep getting drawn back to Africa. When what do you feel when you're there that you don't feel, or perhaps is just different feeling than back in Europe, in Scotland?
So it's a really good question, because I'm also drawn to the Middle East, and I love my own country, Scotland, the UK. What do I feel? I think I feel earthed. I feel more in connection with Mother Earth, if you like. Um, and I feel everything here is vivid for me. It's very vivid and bright. And I quite like being an outsider, an observer. I'm very, very comfortable with that role, because if you imagine, since the earliest childhood, that's what I've been. I've been an outsider, a white face in a country that's primarily black for a start, especially in those days. Um, so I think I'm comfortable with being an outsider and observer. And here, the life gives me so much to talk about, to write about, to podcast about, to I enjoy learning, and there's so much to learn about. So I think that's what Africa gives me. Africa gives me those opportunities. What do I feel? I feel very comfortable. I feel comfortable and happy and open. I don't feel constrained or closed. The opposite. I'm like, squish me into a taxi with six other people or into a bus with all the chickens. I'm fine. I feel relaxed.
That sounds beautiful. Yeah. So more connected with nature. It sounds like you feel like a part of the area. Maybe it brings out something in you that you really enjoy.
I mean, I wonder. I don't know if you think this, or if your listeners think this. I'm going through my life, and life is a circle. We keep hearing this. Is it true? Or life is a journey. But I feel more drawn to the things of my childhood, and the things of my childhood were mountains, Africa, wildness, being free, being outside, hearing different languages, and I'm still doing it all. And I think I'm drawn to that. But I do love my own country as well. Shout out to Scotland.
So you have this ability that you perhaps think of an adventure, hear of an adventure, or a task that's very difficult that most people would think, I shouldn't even attempt it, and if I did, I would not suspect I would even complete it. Where does that come from? What do you think before going on one of these adventures? Do you worry that you can't do it? Do you worry that you're going to regret it? Do you worry what do you worry about before, and how do you do that when no one else, a lot of people cannot do that?
Well, I always say, actually, I think this is true. To be a successful adventurer or explorer, you have to be hugely optimistic, genuinely optimistic, and have a very short memory so that you don't remember all the pain and the hassle that's going to come your way from your experience. And I mean, that really is the key. So I'm a very optimistic person. I believe everything's going to be good, everything's going to turn out well. And as I say, I've got very short memory, so I forget that my legs are going to really hurt and that I'm going to get fed up and that I'm going to be irritable and irritated and that I don't like the feeling of sand in my feet. And I just forget all those things. And then I start and I'm like, oh, blooming heck, I forgot about that. But by then it's fine. And really, I think that for me as well, the key to continuing and to success is you really have to focus and you have to really want to do this stuff or else you won't do it, and be determined to do it. It's like, that's it. I've decided to do it. I'm going to do it unless somebody actually physically kills me or stops me somehow. Um, and then don't look too far ahead. Your only task is to finish that day. That's it.
And that, I mean, that's such, I mean, it sounds like natural advice. It seems like it would be a lot harder to do. And why do you keep doing these incredible things? Why, I mean, what is the driver for you? Are you searching for something? Are you trying to be an inspiration? Are you just challenging yourself? Why do you keep doing these things?
Just makes me feel alive. I never feel more alive than when I'm on expedition, even a mini expedition. That is when I feel fully alive and that I feel I'm using all my skills and that I'm in it.
When you're not doing an adventure, like perhaps right now, right? I mean, you're at home. Are you are you a restless person? Are you always thinking of what you're gonna do next? Or are you just relaxing in between these ordeals?
Well, the thing is, nothing will happen unless I make it happen. So there will be no next unless I act. It's not like a job where you go in on Monday and you're going to have to go in again on Tuesday. If I don't create an adventure, there will be no adventure. So I have to I have to maintain high energy levels to create the adventures, sponsor the adventures, find out how to do the adventures, and then do them. Um, I'm a very relaxed person and I'm a very lazy person. So, I'm happy to lie on my couch. But am I restless? Yes, I'd say I probably am restless because, especially now, I'm now 62 and I realize that I've got there there isn't endless when you're in your 20s, there's endless time ahead of you. You don't think about time at all. There isn't endless time ahead of me. So I want to move and get things done and achieve all these places I want to go and things I want to do. So in that way, I've become more restless actually with age, I think, or more determined or more excited about grasping opportunities. Um, so yes, I'm a really weird mixture of very, very lazy and at the same time galvanizing myself all the time. So I have to galvanize myself to start planning and doing the next thing.
With that, is there an adventure you're still hoping to accomplish?
So many. And I try not to talk about them in advance because if I don't do them, then I'll feel like a fraud. But yeah, I have a massive list. And my problem is a lot of them are really very difficult. And unfortunately, the region I love, Africa and the Middle East, they're very so some very serious conflicts. So some of the countries that I just feel that I have to go there and explore them. There are genuine dangers that I have to be cognizant of. You know, I'm not a stupid person, and the last thing I want is to be kidnapped or murdered or, you know, subjected to some horrible ordeal. I don't want that at all. I want to go and experience all the beauties of the country and the kindness of the people. So that's a bit of a balance that I have to maintain. But yes, there's more in the planning. I can tell you about some very short-term adventures I'm doing. In May, I'm going to climb the ridge opposite my house, which is a very, very high. It's about 3,800 meters mountain ridge called the Dog's Teeth because it looks like a row of teeth. And people do climb it, but very, very few, and very, 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 very few non Moroccans. So I've arranged with one of my friends here, Rashid from Pathfinders Treks, who I've done an adventure with before, and we we're worried about water. Water's the big thing, but we're going to do it in 2 days and one night. So at the moment, I'm training for that. So today was my first day of training.
Wow, are you gonna have to, like, rock climb with harnesses and things like, or is it
No,
walkable?
it's what it's walkable, but we'll need a rope. So, and we'll have to carry, like, we'll have quite a lot of stuff to carry, including water and food, obviously. So it will be very strenuous and quite tricky. That's British understatement, but hopefully it'll be fine. I'm not a rock climber. So yeah, I mean, I could, you know, I could climb an easy rock face if I absolutely had to, but it would be very much a like, I don't wish I didn't have to do this.
That brings up something I wanna talk to you about. Could you bring up, the travel scenarios that you've been in? Because you've taken a lot of treks, right? From in Saudi Arabia, from north to south. I believe you had a couple of camels on that trip. You did it in a couple of different, time frames, right?
Uh-huh.
You're usually the sole female amongst many Muslim men doing these a lot of these ordeals. Can you talk to me about that? What's that experience like?
So because I'm doing the expedition, so if you like, I'm the reason for it, but I need a backup team because me wandering across the desert, I wouldn't last for very long. And if I got camels, I want camel tears. So very often I spent 7.5 months walking across Morocco and the Sahara with 7 male camels and 3 male Amazigh guides, Muslim. And then I've just spent all these months walking, becoming the first recorded person to walk north to south Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And that was several months with a group of all male Muslims, one Christian, and 2 female camels. So I had female company. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. When I set off for the Morocco trip, I was a bit worried I would be lonely, to be honest with you. You know, I was a woman, I was Christian, I was obviously Western, um, and I'm like, you know, very much like highly educated, work in media, writer. So I was just worried that I would feel lonely amongst a group of very traditional, staunchly Muslim, Amazigh, Berber men. I was like, will they accept me? Because their wives and daughters would not do this ever. They would not go off on their own with a group of non family men. They would walk. They came from my men came from nomadic stock, so their women were as strong as oxen and would walk, but they wouldn't do it alone like me with a group of men they didn't know. So I knew I was worried they'd disapprove of me, that they'd find me too strange, that they'd treat me like a client rather than a team member. But that didn't happen. I remember with Brahim, who was the expedition leader in Morocco Sahara, we were walking and I was like walking behind the camels, a bit downtrodden on day 2, I think. And Brahim just yelling to me, he called me Zahra, which means flower or good fortune. And he went, Zahra, Zahra, come to the top, come to the front, walk with me, because one hand cannot clap. And that's when I realized that I was going to be part of the group and that he needed my other hand, just like I needed his other hand. And that was a very beautiful moment. And those men become firm, firm friends. And we had the most wonderful adventure together.
Yeah, I hear these adventures and you tell the stories and they sound so fun. I could see myself being on one of these, um, trips and just having I mean, it would be extremely difficult, I'm not saying that, but I could see it being such a lifelong memory. You know, the people you connect with in these times, the what you see, what you experience, that has to be I don't know, I think it would be beautiful for me if I did something like that.
Well, you should. And I mean, I often people often ask me how I started all this stuff. I was working, I was a corporate. Yeah, I was pursuing a career and I was very career driven. But what I did was in my holidays, every single holiday, I would go away with someone like Intrepid Travel, fantastic travel company. They do all these trips all over the world. You go on your own, but you're with a group. They've already curated all the best bits of the country to show you. And I'd go off with someone like them and explore a new country and that was a brilliant way to ease in to doing very big things. And I would say to anyone, you don't have to start with like walking the whole of Saudi Arabia. You can start by just walking over your local hills or going on a group holiday, as I say, with someone like Intrepid, or you can do a bike trip. Things that you don't have to start at 100. Start at one and work your way up. Run, do a park run, do a half marathon, do something. Just do something where you have to try and where you have to open your eyes and where the experience will enrich you in some way, and then you'll keep going.
Great advice. Do you I think I've heard you talk about this, but I wanted to ask you for people listening. Do you worry about what people think? You know, here you are living this different lifestyle. You're going out and doing these incredible things. Some people, if they think of doing what you're doing, they would worry about it, what others would think. Do you ever worry about that?
I don't really worry about what people think of me. I mean, sometimes it's important, if somebody I need to get sponsorship from someone or I'm trying to sell them something like a TV series or a book, then it's important what they think of me. Um, but that's kind of in a work context, if different. But as a person, I try to be good, and I like people to like me. Of course, I do. I'm human, but what do they think of me? Well, you have to get over that. And living here has been really interesting for me because here in this community, everybody pities me. Like, I think what I do is amazing. It's like, I'm like, look at me, amazing adventurer. I'm amazing. And they're like, oh, Alice, poor you. You don't have a husband, and you don't have children, and you're not very good at cooking, and your house is a bit grubby. You're not a very good housewife, are you? And they genuinely pity me. And I'm making it sound funny, but the first time it happened, I was quite shocked. And they were like, we're so sorry for you. And you're so nice. We can get you a husband, and maybe he'll already have children. So you'll have children, or maybe you can have children. I'm going like, at 62, I don't think I can have children. They're going, God is great. So then that's when you realize, and they love me anyway, and they treat me beautifully, and they're so fun and kind to me. So that's when you realize it really doesn't matter what people think of you, and you don't actually have much control over that. The main thing is I mean, I've got a quick temper. So the main thing is to keep a hold of yourself and not to do something that will make someone think poorly of you for good reason. Because, that's when I do care. When I know I've done something wrong and someone justifiably thinks I'm an absolute idiot. And I'm like, you know what? They think that. And actually, in this case, they're right. And then that hurts. That stings.
Hmm. So maybe when you let yourself down, that's the ultimate person that you're
Yeah.
trying to please.
Yeah.
So of all these adventures that you've done, which one was the hardest for you? It could be physical, emotional, mental. Which one would you say was the hardest and why was that?
I mean, it's a bit difficult. I don't know. They all have their pretty hard bits, but I think maybe running around Everest. So I did an ultra marathon around Everest, which was 6 days of running around Everest, clues in the title. And the reason it was hard was there was so much climbing, like going up. for hours and hours and hours. And I had to reach the checkpoints so that in the time, or else I'd have been disqualified. And I was with really everyone else was a good runner. And that was just in order to make it, I had to spend all the time just going, don't give up, run the flats, run the downs, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And I just had to do that all the time. So I think that was hard. Physically, it was very hard. I was exhausted. Um, and mentally, it was hard. And it probably gave me I mean, it gave me joy in a way. And I certainly felt alive, but I felt slightly beaten up alive. There was some very funny moments, but it was difficult.
Do you think you learned from that experience? Is it something that you maybe say, well, next time I'll do something where there's not necessarily a time limit. I can kind of enjoy my way through the ordeal, or not really?
No, I would definitely do another race. But yeah, I think I have naturally moved much more towards exploring. I mean, because I think that is also where it's like I feel like I've graduated. I've kind of gone through, I started off with straight adventuring and now I've gone into more exploring and trying to find new things. Or that sounds ridiculous. I'm not finding new things, but I am doing things that either no one or very few or nobody's recorded so I think that idea of exploring is very exciting to me and much more exciting than doing a race, which I'm actually bad at. Physically, I'm not particularly sporty or athletic. So it's a huge struggle for me to do a race. And it's the enjoyment is still the adventure, it's not the actual race. So if I can do an exploration or a massive expedition, then that's got the added bonus of being something that I will enjoy more.
Of all these adventures that you've done, um, is there one that you can look back on that was the most gratifying?
No, they're all gratifying. No, honestly, I'm not going to choose between my babies. They're all different and they're all gratifying, including Everest for sure. I mean, in that, it was the sheer delight and relief when I crossed the finish line. It was like, oh, thank goodness for that. Um, no, they've all been amazing and life affirming. So I wouldn't choose one.
So you've done all these wonderful things, all these great memories. So now, if you were to look back on your younger self, right? You started going full time in your late 40s. What advice would you have any advice for your younger self in regards to what you've learned? Would you say perhaps you know you should have left before that age, or is there something you would tell yourself?
Well, I mean, yeah, in a way, I should have left. It'd been great if I'd started in my 20s. Imagine what I could have accomplished. But would I have had enough money to accomplish it? And would I have had the skills I have now? I've been a CEO, so I understand working with people. I understand working with um, partners. I understand marketing, PR. I can write because I've been a journalist for years. So I think all the skills I built up, if you like, in my corporate and media life, I brought with me into adventuring. And to be honest, I didn't have enough means. Now I mean, I live very simply. I spend all my money on expeditions and I get sponsors to come in and work with me. Um, so I don't think would I have done things differently? Possibly, but it would be the smaller things. I think you can't for me anyway, life has not worked like that. There wasn't a plan. There wasn't a plan. I'm going to work till I'm 48, then I'm going to cycle across Africa, and then I'm going to become a full-time adventurer. I am the personality type that whatever I'm doing, I'll seize the opportunity to do that, and I will do. I will wring every last drop of success that I can out of it, and that's what I'm doing now. For me, I think there's a huge pride, which is bad because it always comes before a fall. But there's a huge sense of satisfaction that, yeah, I did used to be a CEO. And 12 years later, 15 years later, I'm now a published author. I've done TV series. I've, you know, I've done world firsts. I'm hopefully a little bit renowned as an explorer and adventurer. I'm probably one of the foremost desert explorers at the moment. So I feel a huge sense of gratification that in this strange journey I started on, I've managed to move towards what I consider a success. And it's only for me. Nobody else cares. Nobody cares what I do, but I care.
So to me, it sounds like you really have no regrets. To me, and I could be wrong, but I mean, we all have regrets, right?
Yeah.
But, but it seems to me like you're almost riding a wave, the life of your wave, and and as and you ride it at its time to its fullest, and where you're at, you see kind of what the next step is. And how can you regret anything when you live your life in that way?
I love that metaphor. That's beautiful. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You've really summed it up fantastically. Yeah, and also regrets are completely futile because the past is gone, you know.
Um, one final question is kind of a silly question, and you've given so many insights and nuggets that I kind of feel silly asking you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. For you and your life, right?
Yes.
What have you learned that makes your life meaningful?
How could that possibly be a silly question? That's the fundamental question. That's the best question. Honestly, that's absolutely the correct question that we should all be asking ourselves quite often. And for I do actually. Um, it's a very you've asked a very philosophical question. What makes life meaningful? Um, I think personally, I find it hard to I'm not sure there is an innate meaning in life. In Islam, they say we're born to worship. And what I take that to mean I actually like it. I've taken it because what I think that means by worship, I'm not thinking of going to the mosque or the church or the synagogue. I'm thinking of fully enjoying this beautiful, amazing world we live in and the fantastic people that are in it. So that's what I take. So I almost think we've been created to fully enjoy and take as much as we can in experience terms out of this life whilst being as good as we can to other people, to animals, to the planet. So that's what I've taken as a meaning. There is no meaning as such. The meaning is to be. That is the meaning. It is the meaning, just to be. And for me, if you like, what I do is I set these goals and targets, and every year I have a little business plan for myself of what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try and achieve. And I do that in order to fully experience and have some structure to fully be within.
Thank you for that. Miss Morrison, thank you for being with me today. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to be following you. And if someone wants to find out more about you, I think you've written some books, you have a website, I think you have a podcast as well. How can people find out more about you?
Well, it's been my pleasure to join you on your podcast. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I've enjoyed talking to you. Your questions have been excellent, and thank you for all the deep research you've done into me. It must have been a bit tiresome. So I'm very, very easy to find. All my social media handles are at Alice Out There One, number one, Alice Out There One, Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok. Threads, YouTube, all Alice Out There One. My website is alicemorrison.co.uk. I have a blog, which is on the website, .co.uk/blog. I do have my own podcast, which is about my adventures, which is Alice in Wonderland with an A, Wanderland. Um, And I have written 4 books. And in fact, I've written 5 books because I just finished another one last week. And now we're looking for a publisher. So all my books you can find if you want to search me. If you search Alice Saudi or Alice Morocco or Alice Morrison, you'll find me because I'm all over the internet. Deliberately so.
Very good. Yeah, great. I'm gonna put all that down in the show notes. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you being
much.
with me today.
My pleasure.
Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And you.